The morning sun cast long shadows across the Nevada training facility as Captain Sarah Chen adjusted her rifle scope for the third time. Beside her, Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez checked her equipment with the methodical precision that had earned her the nickname Ghost among her unit. Both women had been called to this remote military compound for what their commanding officer had described as an unusual training exercise. Neither sniper knew exactly what awaited them until they were escorted into the briefing room where 20 of America's most elite warriors sat in neat rows. The Navy SEALs looked up with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed skepticism. At the front of the room, Colonel James Harrison cleared his throat and began what would become one of the most talked-about military exercises in recent history. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're conducting an unconventional training scenario, Harrison announced, his voice carrying the authority of 3 decades of military service. Chen and Rodriguez here represent the Army's top precision marksmen. They volunteered to participate in a live-fire exercise against SEAL Team 6. The room fell silent except for the hum of air conditioning. Sarah caught several SEALs exchanging glances, and she could almost hear their thoughts. 2 women against 20 of the world's most elite soldiers? The odds seemed impossible, even in a training environment. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, the SEAL team leader, raised his hand. "Sir, with all due respect, what exactly are the parameters of this exercise?" His tone was professional, but Sarah detected the underlying question. How is this supposed to be fair? Colonel Harrison smiled, clearly anticipating the question. Each team will have access to the same intelligence regarding target locations throughout the compound. The objective is simple: eliminate all opposing force targets while avoiding civilian casualties. The SEALs will work as a coordinated unit, while Chen and Rodriguez will operate as a sniper team. Maria leaned forward in her chair, her dark eyes scanning the faces of the SEALs. She had grown accustomed to doubt over her 8-year career. As a woman in the military, and particularly as a sniper, she had faced skepticism countless times, but she had also learned that actions spoke louder than words, and her record of successful missions spoke volumes. The exercise area covers 15 square miles of varied terrain, Harrison continued, pulling down a large map. Urban environments, desert scrubland, wooded areas, and elevated positions. Each team will have 4 hours to complete their objectives. Success will be measured not just by accuracy, but by tactical efficiency and minimal collateral damage. Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, a veteran SEAL with multiple combat deployments, spoke up from the back row. "Colonel, are we talking about live ammunition or simulation rounds?" "Paint rounds for safety, but the ballistics are identical to live ammunition," Harrison replied. "Each hit will register on your tactical vests, and medics will be stationed throughout the area. This is as close to real combat conditions as we can create in a training environment." Sarah had remained quiet during the briefing, but now she studied the map with professional interest. The terrain offered both advantages and challenges for long-range precision shooting. The urban sections would provide concealment but limit sightlines, while the open desert areas offered clear shots but little cover. She began mentally cataloging potential positions and escape routes. The SEALs, meanwhile, were already discussing strategy in low voices. Their approach would likely involve coordinated movement, with multiple fire teams advancing on suspected sniper positions while maintaining communication through sophisticated radio equipment. 20 highly trained operators could cover a lot of ground quickly and systematically eliminate threats. "Equipment check will be at 0800 hours, Harrison announced. "Exercise begins at 1000 hours sharp. Transportation to your respective starting positions will be provided." Questions? Number 1. Commander Morrison stood. "Sir, will there be any restrictions on movement or engagement rules beyond avoiding civilian casualties?" "Standard rules of engagement apply. This is a free-fire zone once the exercise begins. Use whatever tactics you deem appropriate within the bounds of military law and safety protocols." As the briefing concluded and personnel began filing out, Sarah overheard fragments of conversation from the SEALs. Most seemed confident, discussing how they would flush out the snipers and end the exercise quickly. A few appeared more cautious, acknowledging that underestimating any opponent, regardless of numbers, was a mistake that could prove costly even in training. Maria approached Sarah as they gathered their gear. "What do you think about those odds?" she asked with a slight smile that didn't reach her eyes. 20-2? Sarah replied, shouldering her rifle case. "Sounds about right for a challenge." The two women had worked together before, though never in a scenario quite like this. Sarah brought 7 years of experience as an Army sniper, with confirmed kills from distances exceeding 1,200 meters. Her specialty was urban warfare, having completed multiple tours in challenging environments where precision and patience were the difference between mission success and civilian casualties. Maria's background was different but equally impressive. She had grown up hunting in the mountains of Colorado, developing an intuitive understanding of wind patterns, elevation changes, and natural concealment that formal military training had refined into deadly precision. Her record included some of the longest confirmed sniper kills in recent military history. As they prepared their equipment, both women knew they faced significant challenges. 20 SEALs meant 20 pairs of eyes searching for them, 20 weapons ready to return fire, and 20 minds trained in tactics specifically designed to counter sniper threats. The SEALs would likely split into smaller units, making it impossible to track all of them simultaneously while maintaining firing positions. But the snipers had advantages too. Superior optics would allow them to engage targets at ranges where return fire would be ineffective. Their smaller unit size meant faster decision-making and movement. Most importantly, they could choose when and where to engage, forcing the SEALs to react rather than dictate the terms of contact. The equipment check revealed the standard loadout for both sides. The SEALs carried M4 carbines with various tactical modifications, along with standard communication gear and tactical vests. The snipers had their preferred rifles. Sarah carried a Barrett M82A1 for long-range work, while Maria preferred the more portable but equally accurate M24 SWS. Both had backup weapons and extensive camouflage gear. By 0900 hours, both teams were transported to opposite ends of the exercise area. The SEALs established a base of operations in an abandoned warehouse complex, while the snipers were dropped near a series of rocky outcroppings that offered natural concealment and elevated firing positions. Sarah and Maria spent their first 30 minutes conducting reconnaissance through their scopes, identifying potential SEAL positions and planning movement routes. They could see activity around the warehouse complex, but the distance was too great for accurate identification of individual targets. "They'll probably send scouts first," Maria observed, tracking movement through her scope. "Try to locate us before committing their main force." Sarah nodded, adjusting her position to get a better view of the likely approach routes. "We need to decide whether to engage early or wait for them to commit to an advance. Early contact gives away our position but might eliminate their reconnaissance element." The decision would prove crucial to everything that followed. As the official start time approached, both teams made final preparations for what promised to be an unprecedented test of tactics, skill, and determination. The stage was set for a confrontation that would challenge conventional wisdom about small unit tactics and the capabilities of highly trained individual operators. At exactly 1,000 hours, Colonel Harrison's voice crackled over the radio. "Exercise is live. Good hunting." The two female snipers settled into their positions, watching 20 of America's most elite warriors begin their advance across the Nevada desert. The odds seemed impossible, but both women had built their careers on proving that skill, preparation, and tactical thinking could overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. The exercise that would become legendary in military training circles was about to begin. The first shot came at 1,047 hours. 47 minutes after the exercise began. SEAL Petty Officer Second Class David Park was advancing through a cluster of abandoned vehicles when Maria's bullet found its mark, striking his tactical vest with the distinctive splat of a paint round. Park immediately dropped to the ground and activated his emergency beacon, officially eliminated from the exercise. From her concealed position 800 meters away, Maria allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. The SEALs had approached exactly as predicted, sending out scouts in pairs while maintaining radio contact with their main force. Park's partner, Petty Officer Johnson, immediately sought cover behind a burned-out truck and began scanning for the source of the shot. Sarah, positioned 300 meters to Maria's east, watched through her scope as the SEAL team's response unfolded. Within seconds of the first shot, she observed muzzle flashes as several SEALs opened fire in Maria's general direction. Their discipline was impressive. Rather than panicking, they established a base of fire, while other team members began flanking movements designed to close distance with the sniper position. "Maria, you've got 3 moving up the left side of those vehicles," Sarah whispered into her radio. "I can see them from here, but don't have a clear shot." "Copy that," Maria replied, already beginning to relocate. One of the cardinal rules of sniper tactics was never to fire more than 2 shots from the same position. The SEALs would have marked her location within seconds of her first shot and were probably calling in coordinates for suppressive fire. The second elimination came 12 minutes later. Sarah had repositioned to a rocky outcropping that offered a clear view of the SEALs' likely advance route. Through her scope, she watched Petty Officer First Class Michael Torres moving in what he probably thought was a concealed approach along a dry creek bed. From Sarah's elevated position, however, his movement was clearly visible. She led her target slightly, compensating for his movement and the mild crosswind, then squeezed the trigger. The paint round struck Torres' center mass, and another SEAL was out of the exercise. The score was now 2 down, 18 to go, but the SEALs were learning from each engagement. After Torres' elimination, Sarah noticed their movement patterns becoming more unpredictable. Instead of advancing in straight lines or following obvious cover, they began using smoke grenades to obscure their positions and moving in short, random bursts that made them difficult to track through a rifle scope. Commander Morrison had clearly adapted his tactics based on the first 2 eliminations. Rather than continuing to send small teams forward, he consolidated his remaining 18 men into 3 coordinated groups. Each group would advance along different routes, forcing the snipers to choose which threat to engage, while leaving the other groups free to maneuver. "They're getting smart," Sarah observed, watching the SEALs deploy smoke and begin their 3-pronged advance. "We can't cover all 3 groups simultaneously." Maria had relocated to a position that offered good fields of fire toward the center and left approaches. But the right side group was moving through an area where natural terrain features blocked her view. "I've got the center and left groups. The right side is yours, if you can get an angle on them." Sarah began moving toward a position that would give her a clear view of the right side group, but the SEALs were advancing faster than anticipated. As she reached her new firing position, she realized that one group was already much closer than expected. Through her scope, she could see individual faces clearly, close enough that she could make out the determination in their expressions. The third shot was the most difficult so far. Sergeant Marcus Webb, leading the center group, was moving tactically from cover to cover with the fluid movements of someone who had done this hundreds of times in actual combat. Sarah tracked him through her scope, waiting for him to commit to a movement that would give her a clear shot. When Webb made his move, Sarah was ready. Her bullet caught him just as he reached for cover behind a concrete barrier, striking his vest with perfect accuracy. Webb immediately signaled his elimination and took cover, but his expression suggested he was impressed rather than frustrated by the shot. 3 down, 17 to go. But the remaining SEALs were now close enough to pose a real threat to the sniper positions. Sarah could hear their communications chatter increasing as they coordinated their final approach. Time was becoming a critical factor. The 4th elimination almost didn't happen. Petty Officer Lisa Chen, one of 2 female SEALs in the unit, had managed to work her way to within 200 meters of Maria's position by using a drainage ditch that wasn't visible from most elevated positions. Maria spotted her movement only because a reflection from Chen's scope caught her attention. The shot required Maria to expose herself briefly, rising from her concealed position to get a clear angle into the ditch. As she fired, striking Chen cleanly, Maria was already moving again. She could hear bullets impacting around her former position within seconds of her shot. 4 down, 16 remaining. But now the SEALs knew approximately where both snipers were positioned, and they were close enough to make relocation extremely dangerous. The next phase of the engagement would require different tactics. Sarah made a decision that surprised everyone monitoring the exercise. Instead of continuing to engage from long range, She began moving toward the SEAL positions, using natural terrain features to mask her approach. Her goal was to get close enough to engage multiple targets quickly before the SEALs could react. The tactic worked better than expected. By approaching from an unexpected direction, Sarah managed to position herself with clear shots at 3 SEALs who were focused on Maria's last known position. Her 5th, 6th, and 7th shots came in rapid succession, each one finding its mark before the targets could react. Petty officers Rodriguez, Kim, and Thompson were eliminated within 30 seconds of each other. The paint rounds struck with audible impacts, and all 3 SEALs immediately acknowledged their eliminations and ceased participation in the exercise. 7 down, 13 to go. The remaining SEALs now realized they were facing opponents who were willing to take significant tactical risks to maintain the initiative. Commander Morrison's voice could be heard over the radio, calling for his remaining men to consolidate their positions and establish overlapping fields of fire. But Maria had also been busy during Sarah's flanking movement. From her new position, she had clear shots at 2 SEALs who were attempting to establish a support by fire position on elevated ground. Her 8th and 9th shots eliminated petty officers Jackson and Williams before they could set up their position. 9 down, 11 remaining. The exercise had been running for 2 hours, and the tactical situation had completely reversed from the SEALs' initial expectations. Instead of quickly locating and eliminating 2 isolated snipers, they found themselves being systematically picked off by opponents who seemed to anticipate their every move. The turning point came when the remaining SEALs decided to abandon conventional tactics entirely. Rather than continuing to maneuver against the snipers' positions, they began using their superior numbers to establish a perimeter and wait for the snipers to make mistakes. It was a sound tactical decision, but it played directly into the snipers' strengths. With the SEALs in defensive positions, Sarah and Maria could take their time, choosing optimal shots without the pressure of immediate counterattacks. The next 6 eliminations came methodically, each shot carefully planned and executed with precision that impressed even the most experienced military observers. Petty officers Martinez, Brown, Taylor, Singh, Anderson, and White were eliminated in succession, each one struck by perfectly placed shots that left no doubt about the sniper's accuracy. 15 down, 5 remaining. The final 5 SEALs, including Commander Morrison, had taken cover in a concrete structure that offered excellent protection but limited visibility. They were essentially trapped, unable to advance without exposing themselves to sniper fire, but also unable to effectively return fire from their defensive positions. Sarah and Maria coordinated their final approach, moving to positions that would give them overlapping fields of fire on the structure's exits. When the remaining SEALs eventually attempted to break out of their defensive position, both snipers were ready. The last 5 eliminations happened quickly. Commander Morrison and his remaining men made a coordinated rush from the structure, hoping to reach cover before the snipers could engage all of them. It was a desperate tactic, but it was also their only remaining option. Both snipers opened fire simultaneously, their shots carefully coordinated to ensure no targets escaped. Morrison, petty officers Davis, Lee, Wilson, and Garcia were all eliminated within seconds of leaving their defensive position. 20 shots, 20 hits. The exercise was over. Colonel Harrison's voice crackled over the radio. Exercise concluded. All personnel returned to the debriefing area. The tone of his announcement suggested that even he was surprised by the outcome. As Sarah and Maria gathered their equipment and began the walk back to the debriefing area, they could see the eliminated SEALs also making their way back. The expressions on the SEALs' faces ranged from amazement to professional respect, but there was no anger or resentment. These were elite warriors who recognized exceptional skill when they encountered it. The debriefing session would be interesting, but both women knew they had proven something important that day. Superior numbers didn't guarantee victory when facing opponents who combined exceptional individual skill with effective teamwork and tactical flexibility. 20 against 2 had seemed like impossible odds. But the final score told a different story entirely. The debriefing room was unusually quiet. As the 22 participants filed in and took their seats, Colonel Harrison stood at the front, holding a tablet containing the official exercise results and performance data. The numbers on his screen told a story that would reshape military training doctrine for years to come. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harrison began, his voice carrying a mix of professional pride and genuine amazement. "What we witnessed today was exceptional by any measure. 20 shots fired, 20 targets eliminated, 0 civilian casualties, and complete mission success for the sniper team." Commander Morrison leaned back in his chair, shaking his head with what could only be described as professional admiration. "Colonel, I've been in the Navy for 15 years, and I've never seen anything quite like that." Those two operators redefined what's possible with precision marksmanship and tactical coordination. Sarah and Maria sat quietly at the side of the room, still processing the magnitude of what they had accomplished. Neither woman had expected to achieve a perfect score against such elite opponents. The exercise had pushed both of them to their absolute limits, requiring split-second decisions and flawless execution under extreme pressure. "Let's break down the tactical elements that led to this outcome," Harrison continued, pulling up a digital map showing the movement patterns and engagement points throughout the exercise. The first factor was superior positioning and reconnaissance. Chen and Rodriguez used their initial observation time to identify not just SEAL positions, but probable movement routes and tactical responses. The map displayed colored lines showing how the snipers had anticipated SEAL movements with remarkable accuracy. Maria had positioned herself to cover the most likely approach routes, while Sarah had selected positions that offered both long-range shots and quick relocation options. Their pre-engagement planning had proven nearly perfect. Petty Officer Park, the first SEAL eliminated, raised his hand. "Ma'am, when you took that first shot, how long had you been tracking my movement?" Maria considered the question carefully. "Approximately 8 minutes. I identified your approach route about 2 minutes after the exercise began, but waited until you reached a position where I had a clear shot and good escape routes planned." "The patience factor cannot be understated," Harrison added. "Traditional sniper doctrine emphasizes patience, but applying it effectively against opponents of this caliber requires exceptional discipline. Most soldiers would have taken earlier shots, with lower probability of success." Sergeant Webb, eliminated third in the exercise, spoke up from the middle of the room. "The thing that impressed me most was how they adapted their tactics mid-exercise. When we started closing distance and making their long-range positions untenable, they shifted to more aggressive approaches that completely caught us off guard." Sarah nodded acknowledgement. "The tactical situation required flexibility. Maintaining distance against your unit would have eventually led to our positions being overrun. By moving closer and taking calculated risks, we could maintain the initiative and prevent you from coordinating effective counterattacks." "Which brings us to the second major factor," Harrison continued. "Tactical innovation under pressure." Both Chen and Rodriguez demonstrated willingness to abandon conventional sniper tactics when the situation demanded it. This adaptability proved crucial to their success. The room fell silent as Harrison pulled up video footage from the exercise, recorded by drones positioned throughout the area. The footage showed Sarah's flanking movement that resulted in 3 quick eliminations, followed by Maria's perfectly timed shots that prevented the SEALs from establishing their support position. "You can see here how they coordinated their movements without extensive radio communication," Harrison explained, pointing to specific moments in the footage. "This level of tactical understanding between partners typically takes years to develop, but these two operators demonstrated it under combat conditions." Commander Morrison studied the footage intently. "Their positioning was what really got us. Every time we thought we had figured out their location, they were already somewhere else. It was like fighting ghosts." Petty Officer Chen, one of the female SEALs, had a different perspective. "What struck me was how they used our own tactics against us. When we started using smoke and coordinated advances, they adapted by using our movement patterns to predict where we'd be vulnerable." The technical analysis revealed the true scope of the sniper's achievement. Average engagement ranges had been between 400 and 800 meters, with the longest shot reaching 1,100 meters. Every shot had been fired under tactical pressure, with the SEALs actively maneuvering and returning fire. The accuracy rate of 100% under these conditions was unprecedented in military training records. The psychological factor was significant too, added Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the exercise psychologist who had been monitoring stress levels and decision-making patterns. Both snipers maintained exceptional composure throughout the exercise, making complex tactical decisions while under extreme pressure from multiple threats. Maria spoke for the first time since the initial question. The pressure was definitely intense, but our training prepared us for exactly these kinds of scenarios. The key was focusing on one shot at a time rather than thinking about the overall odds. That mindset discipline is crucial, Harrison agreed. The moment you start thinking about 20 opponents instead of focusing on the immediate threat, decision-making becomes compromised and accuracy suffers. The conversation turned to broader implications for military training and tactics. What had happened during the exercise challenged several assumptions about small unit operations and the effectiveness of precision marksmen in complex tactical situations. This exercise will definitely influence how we train our reconnaissance and counter-sniper teams, Commander Morrison acknowledged. We assumed that superior numbers and coordinated movement would quickly overwhelm isolated precision shooters. But today proved that assumption can be dangerously wrong. Sarah added her perspective on the broader lessons. I think the key takeaway is that individual skill levels can sometimes overcome numerical disadvantages, but only when combined with effective teamwork and tactical flexibility. Neither of us could have achieved this result working alone. The debriefing revealed several specific tactical innovations that had contributed to the snipers' success. Their use of coordinated position changes had prevented the SEALs from establishing effective fire superiority. Their willingness to engage from unexpected ranges had disrupted SEAL tactical plans. Most importantly, their ability to anticipate and counter SEAL responses had kept them ahead of their opponents throughout the exercise. The intelligence preparation was outstanding, noted Captain Williams, the exercise observer. Both snipers demonstrated thorough understanding of SEAL tactics and training, which allowed them to predict responses and plan accordingly. As the formal debriefing concluded, individual conversations began throughout the room. SEALs approached the snipers with questions about specific shots and tactical decisions. There was no animosity or wounded pride. These were professional warriors discussing their craft with colleagues who had demonstrated exceptional mastery. Petty Officer Martinez, eliminated during the systematic phase of the engagement, approached Maria with obvious curiosity. That shot you made when I was behind the concrete barrier? How did you know exactly when I would move? Trime. Maria smiled slightly. You had been in that position for 47 seconds, which is longer than most people can remain motionless under stress. Plus, you kept shifting your weight slightly to your left foot, which suggested you were preparing to move in that direction. The observation skills required for that level of tactical awareness are extraordinary, Morrison commented, overhearing the conversation. It's like having supernatural situational awareness. Sarah joined the conversation. It's really about training your mind to process multiple information streams simultaneously. Wind patterns, target behavior, friendly positions, escape routes, ammunition count, time factors. All of that has to be constantly evaluated and updated. The unofficial discussions continued for nearly an hour after the formal debriefing ended. SEALs shared their perspectives on what had gone wrong with their tactical approach, while the snipers offered insights into their decision-making processes throughout the exercise. The most frustrating part was how you always seemed to be one step ahead, admitted Petty Officer Davis. Every time we thought we had figured out your pattern, you had already moved to something completely different. That's the essence of effective sniper operations, Sarah explained. Predictability is fatal. The moment your opponents can anticipate your actions, you've lost the tactical advantage that precision marksmanship provides. As the participants prepared to leave, Colonel Harrison made one final announcement. The results and lessons from today's exercise will be compiled into a comprehensive training manual for distribution throughout the special operations community. What happened here today will influence military training doctrine for years to come. The exercise had achieved something unexpected. Instead of simply testing the capabilities of elite units against precision marksmen, It had demonstrated new possibilities for small unit tactics and the importance of individual skill development within military training programs. Walking across the Nevada desert toward their transportation, Sarah and Maria reflected on what they had accomplished. 20 of America's most elite warriors had been outmaneuvered and defeated by superior tactics, exceptional marksmanship, and flawless teamwork. Think they'll want a rematch? Maria asked with a grin. Sarah looked back toward the debriefing facility, where SEALs were still discussing the day's events with obvious enthusiasm. I think they're already planning improvements to their counter-sniper tactics. Next time will be much harder. But for now, the score remained perfect. 2 against 20, with every target eliminated and mission success achieved against impossible odds. The story of that remarkable day would become part of military legend, inspiring future generations of precision marksmen and reminding all warriors that skill, determination, and tactical excellence could overcome any odds. The exercise had ended, but its impact on military training and tactical thinking was just beginning. In proving that 2 highly skilled operators could defeat 20 elite warriors through superior tactics and marksmanship, Sarah and Maria had changed how the military thought about individual capabilities and small unit effectiveness. Their perfect score against overwhelming odds would be remembered as one of the most remarkable achievements in modern military training history.